under the bright African sun, before the people of Namibia and the world watching with curiosity and hope. I stand here today with a heart full of gratitude, admiration, and conviction. My message today is not just for Namibia, not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa and the entire world. It is a message born out of truth, courage, and awakening. I speak as the President of Namibia, but also as an African daughter who has seen how long we have been misunderstood, divided, and underestimated. And today, I raise my voice to honor a man who has reignited the fire of African dignity. Ibrahim Traore, the President of Burkina Faso. When I first heard him speak, I did not hear a politician. I heard a soldier of truth. I heard an African son who refused to bow to fear, who refused to trade his nation's dignity for foreign promises, and who reminded us that true leadership is not about serving the powerful, but about serving your people with integrity. Ibrahim Traore did not just speak for Burkina Faso, he spoke for all of us, for every nation that has felt the weight of external control, for every young African who was told that their dreams must be approved by others before they could be real. He spoke for Africa's soul, and today I say to the world, we have heard him, and we stand with him. When we say Traore taught us how to save our minerals from the West, and Traore saved our billion-dollar mines, we are talking about something far deeper than just economic policy. We are talking about a shift in consciousness, a complete reawakening of African sovereignty.
Both gas and electricity were costing me over £300 a month. I was desperate to find cheaper deals and went to this site. It was very easy. I entered a few details about my current supplier, filled in a very short form, and they contacted me right away and helped me find a cheaper deal. Now I'm paying a lot less and I got a deal under the price cap. Give it a try, click the link below and see how much you could save.
Call Tower exists to enable people to easily connect and transact business communications. Since its inception,
for decades, Africa has been known as the richest continent beneath the ground and the poorest above it. Gold, uranium, copper, cobalt, and countless other treasures flow from our soil, yet the profits rarely reach our people. We were told that foreign investors would bring development, but what they really brought was dependence. They arrived with contracts written in languages most of our leaders could not even question, with percentages that looked generous on paper, but were designed to drain our nations quietly. They built mines that glittered under the sun, but beneath that glitter lay deep theft, a systematic extraction of our lifeblood, disguised as partnership. Then came Ibrahim Traore. He did not just question these deals. He dismantled the illusion behind them. He looked at the fine print of foreign contracts and asked a simple question. If this gold is ours, why do we own only 10% of its profit? He studied the mining agreements that had been signed under pressure, and he saw how billions were flowing out of Burkina Faso, while the people who worked the land lived in poverty. And instead of accepting it as the way things are, he acted. Traore showed us that saving our minerals does not require hatred toward others. It requires love for our people and courage to face uncomfortable truths. He understood that natural wealth is not truly wealth until it feeds the children, builds the schools, and powers the hospitals of its own people. So he began a national review of all foreign mining concessions. Companies that refused to renegotiate were shown the door. New laws were introduced to ensure that Burkina Faso's gold and resources would be refined locally, that jobs would stay within the country, and that the state would hold a controlling stake in major resource projects. This was revolutionary, not only because of what it achieved, but because of what it symbolized. For the first time in modern history, a young African leader said openly that our minerals are not for sale, they are for service. Service to our own development, to our own progress, to our own dignity. And when other nations watched, many were inspired because Traore was not acting only for Burkina Faso. He was speaking for every African country that had been forced to trade its inheritance for a promise of foreign aid. He reminded us that the word aid itself often hides exploitation. What is the meaning of aid when billions leave our lands and only millions return as loans with interest? He said to the West, we do not reject cooperation, we reject deception. And with those words, he taught Africa that saving our minerals begins with changing our mindset. When Traore said no to unfair contracts, the West called him defiant. When he nationalized parts of the mining industry, they called him dangerous. But his people called him brave, because for the first time, the gold under their feet was not a curse. It became a promise that their children might finally benefit from the richness of their homeland. By saving Burkina Faso's billion-dollar mines from exploitation, Traore saved more than just assets. He saved belief. He restored faith in African leadership. He proved that with courage and clarity, a small nation could stand against the biggest corporations in the world and win. He showed that Africa does not need to beg for investors. Africa itself is the investor, the resource, and the reward. Now, other nations are following his example. Across the continent, governments are re-examining their mining agreements, demanding better terms, and asserting control over local production. This is the Traore effect, a wave of self-reliance and pride moving through Africa, reminding us that we are not poor, we are simply mismanaged. He replaced the language of submission with the language of ownership. When we say Traore saved our billion-dollar mines, we mean he saved our right to determine our own future. He saved the jobs of thousands who once worked for foreign bosses who paid them pennies while shipping billions overseas.
So if you want to trade profitably, the best place to start is probably just go to this free community. Yeah, it's literally.
He saved the hope of millions who now see that leadership can be both bold and just. And above all, he saved the truth that Africa's resources were never meant to enrich the world while leaving Africa in chains. He did not do this through hatred or isolation. He did it through principle and discipline. He told the world that Africa is open for partnership, but not for plunder. He taught us that protecting our minerals is not an act of war, it is an act of wisdom. So today, when I, as President of Namibia, say, Traore taught us how to save our minerals, I mean he taught us to renegotiate our dignity. He showed us how to look at our mine not as a gift from investors, but as a birthright from God. He showed us how to use our gold to build our own future, not to decorate foreign banks. And he reminded us that Africa's liberation will not be complete until every ounce of its wealth serves its own people. That is what he did. That is what he saved. And that is why the whole continent calls him not just a leader, but a teacher, the one who showed us that true independence begins when we finally protect what is ours. Many in the West may not understand why his name echoes in the hearts of Africans everywhere, They see only a young man in uniform. But we see something deeper. We see a leader who reminded us that Africa does not need permission to be free. We see a leader who picked up the broken mirror of our history, polished it with courage, and held it up to the West, not to insult them, but to show them the truth. He showed them how Africa has been exploited, how we've been told we are free while being kept in invisible chains. And he told them in his firm and unshaken tone that those days are ending. I say clearly today, Ibrahim Traore is a blessing from God to Africa. At a time when so many have lost faith in leadership, when corruption and compromise have stolen our future, God raised a man who speaks like thunder and acts like a lion. He does not hide behind polite diplomacy. He stands tall, even when it is dangerous. He is not afraid to call out hypocrisy, even when it comes wrapped in aid packages and foreign deals. That kind of courage is divine. That kind of leadership reminds us that Africa's destiny cannot be written in Paris, Washington, or London. It must be written in Ouagadougou, Windhoek, Lagos, and every capital of this great continent. Burkina Faso may seem far from Namibia in geography, but in spirit we are now side by side. Because what Traore represents is not just a national movement, it is a continental rebirth. And I say this to him today. My brother, Ibrahim, your courage has inspired us. You have reminded Namibia that freedom must be defended with unity, not just with words. You have reminded us that Africa must protect its own, trade with its own, and dream with its own. That is why, on behalf of my people, I declare our intention to strengthen our relationship with Burkina Faso, not just as two nations, but as two partners in the mission of African sovereignty. Namibia wants to build a future where we share technology, education, resources, and defense. We will not wait for foreign validation to unite. We will not ask permission to protect our people. I am announcing today our desire to sign a defense agreement with Burkina Faso under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore, an agreement built not on fear of foreign interest, but on mutual respect and brotherhood. We want our armies to train together, our intelligence to cooperate, our nations to shield each other from the new forms of colonial aggression that now come in the name of loans and aid. Together, we will show that African defense does not need outside approval. It needs African unity. Our partnership will not be built on dependence, but on strength. When one of us stands, the other will not watch. We will stand together. And to the West, let me say this clearly and respectfully. This is not rebellion. This is restoration. Africa is not turning against you. Africa is returning to itself. We are not closing doors. We are opening our eyes. Ibrahim Traore has shown you the mirror, and what you see there may be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. It is a reflection of centuries of exploitation, broken promises, and manipulated alliances. He showed that mirror not to condemn, but to invite you to see Africa with honesty, to deal with us as equals, not subordinates. For too long, we were told that progress must come with permission. We were told that we cannot build our own factories, refine our own resources, or control our own land. But Traore's words remind us that Africa is not poor. It has been made poor. It is not weak. It has been weakened by systems designed to keep it that way. And today, I, as the leader of Namibia, join the growing chorus that says, enough, Africa is rising, and no one can stop a people who have rediscovered their worth. When Ibrahim Traore speaks, I see the reflection of great African leaders before him. Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, men who saw beyond borders.
We run your prop firm challenge for you, and you don't pay until it's passed. Then we hand you a portfolio of automated systems to manage the live account for you.
And dreamed of one Africa standing strong. But Traore adds something unique. He represents a new generation, unafraid of confrontation, yet full of compassion for the people. He reminds us that leadership is not about titles or luxury. It is about sacrifice. It is about being willing to stand alone for what is right, even when the whole world misunderstands you. To the youth of Africa, I say again with all my heart, look to men like Ibrahim Traore, not to place them on pedestals, not to worship them as flawless figures, but to study the fire that drives them, the kind of conviction that makes a person stand tall, even when the whole world tells them to bow. In Traore, we see what it means to lead with integrity, to speak not because it is safe, but because it is necessary. Learn from him that true courage is not measured by volume or applause, but by conviction. It is not about shouting the loudest slogans or making the boldest declarations. It is about standing firm when truth becomes costly. It is about refusing to sell your conscience for comfort. Courage is not found in the absence of fear. It is found in the decision to act rightly despite fear. And that is what Ibrahim Traore has shown us again and again, that even when the world points fingers, when powerful nations threaten, when enemies rise, within and without, a leader anchored in truth will never fall. You, the young men and women of Africa, must understand that the future of this continent is not written in Western boardrooms or in foreign parliaments. It is written in your hearts, in your will, and in your unity. Look at Traore and see what belief in one's nation can do. He did not inherit wealth or power. He inherited a wounded country, burdened by decades of manipulation and fear, but with courage and vision, he turned that pain into purpose. He showed that leadership is not about titles or luxury. It is about sacrifice. It is about waking up every day, ready to fight for your people, not to feed your ego. Leadership, my dear youth, is not about how many follow you, but about how many you lift up. It is not about control. It is about service. The world is full of leaders who speak of change, but serve themselves. Traore has reminded us that Africa needs leaders who serve the people, who can sleep under the same sky as their citizens, who can eat the same food, and who can feel the same struggle. That is what makes a leader worthy of respect, not the size of their office or the power of their allies, but the purity of their purpose. And to my fellow leaders across this beloved continent, I speak with deep sincerity. Let us not fear the example of Ibrahim Traore. Let us follow it. Let us not mock his courage because it exposes our comfort. Let us not dismiss his fire because it reminds us of our own compromises. Instead, let us rise with him. Let us remember that power means nothing if it does not uplift the powerless. Let us remember that the true measure of a leader is not how well they please outsiders, but how fiercely they protect their people. For too long, Africa has been caught in the same trap, a begging bowl mentality. We stretch our hands to those who once took from us what we now beg to have back. We ask for loans when we have gold beneath our soil. We ask for food when our land can feed the world. We ask for weapons when we have sons and daughters ready to defend our nations. We have been made to believe that progress must come wrapped in foreign flags. But no, my brothers and sisters, progress begins the day we look inward and realize that everything we need to build a great Africa is already here. I say this with conviction. Let us be the generation that ends the begging bowl mentality. Let us refuse to define our nations by aid packages and handouts. Let us define them by innovation, by discipline, by unity. Let us build industries that process our resources instead of exporting them raw. Let us invest in our youth instead of waiting for scholarships from abroad. Let us teach our children that the greatness of Africa will not be imported, it will be cultivated from within. When Traore speaks, he speaks from that place of independence, a voice that refuses to echo what others want to hear. He reminds us that dignity is not negotiable. And that is what the youth of Africa must learn, that to build a free continent, you must first free your mind. Do not look to the West for validation. Do not measure your worth by their approval. Measure it by how much you can contribute to your people, how deeply you love your land.
Check your chances of approval before you apply without impacting your credit score, taking the guesswork out of
and how fiercely you protect its future. Our ancestors fought with swords and spears for political freedom. Your generation must now fight with education, technology, and integrity for economic and intellectual freedom. That is the next revolution. That is the war Traore began, not of violence, but of values. He has shown that you can stand for your nation without apology, that you can speak truth without fear, and that you can build without permission. So I say again, do not just admire men like Ibrahim Traore, emulate them. Carry their courage into classrooms, into businesses, into politics, into every corner of this continent. Build with honesty, lead with love, refuse to be bought, refuse to be silenced. Because every young African who chooses courage over comfort becomes another Traore in spirit. And to my fellow leaders, our people are watching. They are tired of excuses, tired of seeing our nations rich in land but poor in hope. Let us stand up with integrity and end this cycle of dependency. Let us trade with each other, trust each other, and defend each other. Let us learn from leaders who dare to speak the truth even when it shakes the earth. If we as a generation can embrace that courage, then Africa will no longer be known as a continent of potential. It will be known as a continent of power, not power that dominates others, but power that uplifts itself, not power that divides, but power that unites. So to every young heart listening to me now, remember this. Courage begins when you decide to stop waiting for someone else to change things. Leadership begins when you take responsibility for your part in Africa's story. And transformation begins when you believe, as Traore does, that we were never meant to crawl when God created us to stand tall. Let this generation rise, not with begging bowls, but with working hands, thinking minds, and brave hearts. Because the Africa that Traore envisions, the Africa we all dream of, will not be built by foreign powers. It will be built by you. I have seen how the world tries to silence him, how they distort his image, how they call him names because he refuses to bow. But what they do not understand is that this time, Africa is awake. We are no longer listening to their definitions of democracy or freedom when they themselves do not respect it in our lands. Ibrahim Traore has shown us that real independence means controlling your resources, your education, your military, and your destiny. And for that, I honor him. Not as a political ally, but as a brother. As a symbol of what God can do when a leader chooses truth over comfort. I believe history will remember him not just as the president of Burkina Faso, but as a turning point for an entire continent. We in Namibia will extend our hand to Burkina Faso for economic cooperation, for joint projects in mining and agriculture, for student exchange programs, and yes, for defense collaboration. We will build bridges that no outsider can break. We will show that African nations can trust each other, trade with each other, and protect each other. To my people of Namibia, I say, do not fear this change. Embrace it. The world may try to isolate those who speak truth, but remember, every great movement began with one voice that refused to be silenced. Traore is not just speaking, he is awakening. And Namibia will not stay asleep. And to the world, to those who have benefited from Africa's silence, we are no longer the same. We will still engage, but on equal terms. We will still trade, but with fairness. We will still cooperate, but with dignity, because the days when Africa bowed are over. Ibrahim Traore has shown us that we do not need permission to walk tall. So, from this land of brave hearts, from Namibia, I send this message. Ibrahim Traore, your courage is our courage. Your vision is our vision. Your strength has reminded us of who we are. Together, we will forge a path that honors our ancestors and inspires our children. May God bless Burkina Faso. May God bless Namibia. May God bless every African nation that still believes in truth, dignity, and unity. And may the world finally see Africa not as a place to pity, but as a continent to respect, strong, proud, and awake. Because the era of silence is over, the era of African awakening has begun, and it began the day leaders like Ibrahim Traore chose to speak truth, no matter the cost.
Rely 100% on yourself every single time you want to record or post something. You have enough day